I think one of the things that anyone who is used to having it all together, or pretending like you have it all together, and carrying a lot of weight and who people can depend on, I think one of the things that we often have a misunderstanding around is what stewardship looks like. I hear a lot from my clients that, it feels like if they stop doing something with someone, it is letting that person down. Or they think some love looks like, if you have it, give it. Or you may feel like you cannot speak up in a particular setting or obey the Lord around a particular, speaking up in a particular setting or acting a particular way in a particular setting because of what people may think, or because it would mean that you are sacrificing your the mass of what people know you for, right? And I think one of the places that we have to start, I'm going to do another video like breaking down what stewardship of power, people, and resources look like. But as a starting point, I think I have to define what stewardship is, right? And stewardship is basically understanding that you are a manager. Um, Miles Monroe talks about that if you go back to the garden and look at the Genesis story, you'll realize that God created the entire earth and He made man a steward of earth's resources. He made man a manager of things in the earth, right? And so man was responsible for naming all the animals. He was responsible for taking care of the garden. He was responsible for being fruitful and multiplying here, right? And I think what happens for us as people who have to have it all together, who pretend that we have it all together, feel like we have to have it all together. When you intersperse that with like the fear of rejection, the fear of being ridiculed, the fear of judgment, the fear of being abandoned, we unintentionally become bad stewards, right? Suddenly, how we manage our resources, like our time, our energy, our money, our ideas, even something as simple as our clothes, even something as simple as our bodies, is influenced by those fears, right? It takes, how we manage it is precedented by how do we keep the mask? How do we keep hiding our real selves to avoid the being rejected, avoid being judged, avoid being abandoned, avoid being ridiculed, avoid being disappointed? How we handle those resources gets filtered through that warped view that we may have of what love looks like, right? And even on top of that, when we look at how we steward people, again, that factor comes in. And when I talk about stewarding people, it's easy to think about people in terms of other people. But remember, you yourself is also a human being, right? It's where love your Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength comes in. Love your neighbor as yourself comes in. Where we cannot love our neighbor until we understand how God loves, and we cannot love our neighbor as ourselves until we understand how God loves us. We cannot love our neighbor as ourselves until we love ourselves, because it's as yourself, right? It's how you love yourself, it flows out into how you love your neighbor, right? And so a lot of times we get focused on stewarding other people, we get focused on stewarding the mission, but we do it at the expense of ourselves, right? And so we become bad managers and bad stewards of ourselves at the expense while we're stewarding other people, right? And so forth. And so it's to get God's view of what stewardship, how are we designed to steward people? How are we designed to steward our resources? How are we designed to steward our influence and our authority? And a big part of that is understanding that stewardship is management, is good management of what God has entrusted us with. So if God entrusts us with authority, influence, or power, no matter what level of leadership we're in, no matter what job role we're in, no matter in our homes, no matter no matter where you are, once you are there, you have influence, you have authority, you have power, and therefore it is essential to partner with the Lord around stewarding that power well. Because one of the things that I have noticed is that when we mismanage one of those elements, when we mismanage our influence, authority, or power, it automatically translates down into us mismanaging people and mismanaging resources, right? I have clients, for example, who will tell me that, they will feel led to speak up because someone is saying something, but they won't speak up because it could affect their money, right? And so automatically the speaking up represents their influence in that situation, and because they have chosen to mismanage their influence because of their fear that it will affect their money, they end up mismanaging the person, right? Because again, relationship is about sanctification, right? I have another example with clients. Clients will say, for example, that to protect their peace, they want to exit certain relationships, or they want to show up and tell people out, and so they mismanage their influence in terms of their voice by wanting to shut off people, and so forth, and in the process they end up mismanaging persons, right? And what God mandates as stewardship, what God's mandates as management of people, of our resources, and of our influence will look very different from what the world expects that should look like, right? And so there is, I think, a gray flamingo version of stewardship that the world has accepted as normal, that is not in line with God's view on that, what I think of as the pink flamingo version of stewardship, right? And so if we're going to have that conversation around stewardship, I believe that it's very important that we understand that our role in this is that we're just managers. We are managers of what God has left for of the earth. We're managers of, it's like the story of the talents, right? Where we're all given according to our capacity, a given amount of things to manage according to our capacity to manage, right? But we all are managers here, right? And it is our duty as managers to partner with the Lord around ensuring good management of the things that He has left, the people that He has left for us to manage, the resources that He has left for us to manage, and the influence that He has left for us to manage. Now, in the next video, I will be talking a little bit more about what the power, the resources, and the influence look like. Like, even in terms of in the Pink Flamingo University, I actually break down even more what the resources, like management of the resources, what that can look like.